done many a reading challenge, as I have done BookTube over the years. But the one challenge I have never done is my screen time swap. I've done it for like one day as like a mini short, but I've never done a full week of swapping my screen time for my reading time, mostly because I'm scared. I was scared to do it. Now, that being said, I feel like my screen time has gone down a lot, which is why I'm willing to attempt this now. I've been getting better at turning off certain notifications, using focus things on my phone to help me, resist the constant scroll and the distractions that come with my phone. But I still have some screen time. And for the next 7 days, I am going to attempt to swap my screen time for my reading time. And I'm scared because we're starting off with a pretty big number of 5 hours and 24 minutes. That's how much I read on this day last week. So that is what I'm going to be reading today. Or that's how much I used my phone on this day last week. And that is what I'm going to be reading for today. And I'm going to start with a book that I need to read. This is a mandatory read for me. It is my book club book for my Patreon for the month. And we have a live show coming up. So I need to read this book before the live show, obviously. And that is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I have really enjoyed Holly Jackson's books in the past. I have read all of the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series except for the novella. I've read the full-length novels. And I gave those 5, 3, and 4 stars respectively. And I gave 5 Survive 5 stars. I really liked 5 Survive. It's probably my favorite Holly Jackson book, which is maybe a hot take, but it is my favorite so far. And I'm expecting this to have very similar vibes to 5 Survive, as that one was like a countdown through like 8 hours of these people being in like a hostage situation. This one is a countdown of 7 days towards someone's death after being hit over the head in an attempted murder, which I guess if they die turns into a murder. That's really all I know about it going into this book. And I'm going to get a head start on this today. Not a head start. I'm going to read it today and read it for the next 5 hours and 24 minutes. I will not finish it in that time. It is a bit of a chunkier audiobook. I think the audiobook is 14 hours. So it'll take me about 7 to read it, 7 to 8 hours, depending. So yeah, I will read this for the entirety of today. And all of my hours will be spent on Not Quite Dead Yet. I will make a significant dent. We won't quite finish it out today, but I will get close to the end of this. And I do think it will read fairly quickly because it is a mystery thriller. And Holly Jackson's books do read really fast for me. So this is how we're going to get started. We're going to see what it's like to swap my screen time with my reading time. And one thing I also want to know today is how much I still use my screen. That's something I think we should like check at the end of every day or like the start of the next day. Did I use my screen less because I was reading more? I think that will be an interesting look. Like if I'm reading for 5 hours and 24 minutes today, does that mean I use my screen time less? It should. But like realistically, there are 10 hours in the day that I'm like awake. So like how much of my extra time am I using on my phone? We're gonna find out both things. We're gonna see how much I can read in the time, but also how much time in between all the reading I waste still on my phone, and if it's less. Okay, it is many, many, many hours later. I ended up doing some public sprints today, and on that I was reading away, trying to get through this timer, and I am almost done. I have about 40 minutes left, but I wanted to chat with you before I went up and started cooking dinner and all that stuff because I have read a lot of Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I've read a significant amount of this book, and I haven't even talked to you yet. So in this book, we follow Jet on Halloween night. She is at a pretty large festival that is happening in her small town. Her parents actually helped put it on. Her parents are well-to-do in this small town and own a construction company, and that is a big part of the plot, that they own this construction company. And she has a brother, Luke, and a sister-in-law, Sophia, and a little baby nephew, Cameron, and we meet the whole family. And definitely the family dynamics in this book are strained. There's a lot that's gone on in this family over the years, and you can definitely see the strains that it's put on every single relationship
in this family. Jet ends up leaving the Halloween party, going home, enters the family home, her parents. She's living with her parents at this time. She's about 27, but has gone through a change in the last few years of leaving her law school degree and coming back home and trying to kind of like find her way. And she enters the family home. She is attacked. She's hit on the back of the head and left for dead. But she's not quite dead yet. And we wake up with her in the hospital, and the doctors are telling her the situation. She has a kidney disease, which is affecting how this brain injury is healing. And she basically has a brain aneurysm that they cannot fix. They can do nothing about, and she will be dead within the next 7 days. And I do think the medical things in this might be a little bit like suspend your disbelief for. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on that. But I think the fact that like we know the exact day to which a brain aneurysm is going to rupture, I think we're stretching. I don't think anyone can know the exact like moment. Like we are taking 7 days as like tried and true. Could be 5. Like how do we know that? There's no way to know that to like a scientific moment. Also, I watch a lot of Grey's Anatomy, so like my medical knowledge certainly is skewed by fiction, but I feel like Dr. Derek Shepherd could fix this, aneurysm. Just saying. I don't know. I don't know that to be true, but I think it could be true. So, again, suspend your disbelief a little bit. So she leaves the hospital because she's like, well, why would I spend my last week of life in this hospital? And decides to solve her own murder. And we are following her as she hunts down the murderer of herself. I am really liking this book. I'm really invested in the story. I'm finding it very, very bingeable. I've already read like 200 pages today, 220 pages, and I read them very quickly. I mean, I guess not. I've been reading for over 5 hours, not over 5 hours, over 4 hours. But like I've been reading for a while, but I haven't even noticed that I've been reading for a while. It reads very fast and I am really enjoying it. The characters, however, are very, very flawed. These characters are not really likable. There may be a couple likable characters in our like side characters. There's a neighbor that works for the police department. I find him quite likable. There's a friend that is a friend of Jet's. I find him quite likable. And there are a couple of likable characters, but within this like family unit, no, they are super flawed. They are a hot mess. We are seeing why they are kind of in the family dynamics that they're in, but we haven't like gotten to the full meat and potatoes of that yet. But like, no matter what, these are not likable people. Jet, I actually don't mind Jet because I think I am giving Jet a pass on a lot of things. She's acting a bit erratically. She's acting very impulsively, but I'm giving her a pass on that because I mean, she has a brain injury. So like, she's been hit in the head multiple times. So I allow her to act a little irrationally because at the end of the day, most people would if this happened to them. So I'm not so much minding that she's a little bit kind of all over the place because I think it makes sense for the situation that she's found herself in. But if you need to like the characters in a book, I think you might struggle with this. I don't find that to be something that I require. Like, I don't need to like the characters. I need good character work, but I don't need to like the characters. I read a lot of dark academia. Dark academia characters are not likable people. No. They're like literally so full of themselves. Like, they are not likable characters in any way, shape, or form. So like, that's okay that most of these people, I'm like, you are a horrible person. You are just awful. But yeah, that's where we're at. I have 40 minutes left, but I'm going to go cook dinner. I'm going to maybe take a few minutes. My eyes are feeling a bit tired and a bit fatigued because I am immersion reading. And I do just need like a little bit of a break now that sprints is over. So I think I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to like watch a show. I don't know which one. I'm behind on so many shows that I'm currently watching. So I have like no idea which one that's going to be. And then I might read this before I have my Bones watch along with my patrons, or I will read it after the Bones watch along. Just depends on how long and like how the rest of the day goes. But either way, we will get this done before I go to bed. 40 minutes, I can listen to the audiobook. It's not going to be a problem. Definitely will get this done. How many more pages will I read? I don't know how many pages I can read in 40 minutes. I don't know. I'll let you know when I finish it. So yeah, I'm going to go have dinner though, because I am quite hungry. And again, my brain just needs like a few moments of like off time, and then I'm going to dive right back in. actually had a lot more heart to it than I expected for your average thriller. By the end, my heart was breaking for Jet. Obviously, we knew the outcome of Jet's story right from the get-go, but because we get to spend so much time with her, the impact of the moment where she goes from not quite dead yet to other is quite heartbreaking. And we do have her reconnecting with a family friend. I mentioned that in the first update. And Billy is a big part of this story as like her sidekick to discovering what happened to her. And they have this childhood friendship that never turns to lovers because obviously that's not what is meant to be. But you have this really deep friendship and really deep love between them in that way that truly is just beautiful to watch. It's really beautiful to see their relationship throughout the book and right up until the end. And honestly, I was almost in tears by the end of this book. It was absolutely so touching. The look on what life really is. Is life about what you accomplish in it? Or is it about the fun and the experiences you had along the way? This book has an underlying like commentary to it because we are following someone in the last days of their life and they know it's the last days of their life and they're really looking at everything that, you know, they've done. And we're seeing that through Jet's perspective. And I really enjoyed this book. I'm going to give it a 4-star. It wasn't a 5 for me, but I really did like it. I found the outcome at the end of the day, it was somewhat obvious, but I do think it was only obvious because she like put the like breadcrumbs to find it, which is what I kind of want in a mystery thriller, to be honest. I want to see those breadcrumbs as we investigate so that I can get there on my own if I need to, but like it's not so out of left field that it doesn't make sense. I only have like one little critique of the end is that I feel like there is a plot point that we didn't end. We didn't finish it. We didn't wrap it up. And I feel like it's kind of an obvious one. I'm not going to say what it is here because like spoilers, but I do think it'll be interesting to chat about it in the live show for this book club because I do think we left a pretty large plot line completely forgotten about that I think she could have wrapped up if she wanted to, but she either didn't think to or didn't think we would question that we didn't wrap it up. It was just, there's just one loose thread. There's a loose thread out there in my mind that we didn't like put a bow at the end of. But overall, I really liked this. I did finish this today, obviously. I had to read 4 hours and 40 some minutes for screen time. I'm going to put it here because I truly forget. And I've already read half of this. Yesterday, I finished my 40 minutes and I got to page 254. And again, I've used about 2 hours of today's time to finish the book. And the reason I didn't come and say hi this morning is because I had nothing to say about the book and I needed coffee. And I do tend to get a lot of my reading done very early in the morning. One of my like skills or what, not skills, it's not a skill. One of my strategies, that's the word I'm looking for. One of my strategies to read is to get up fairly early. I get up before like everybody wakes up in my house and have a couple of hours of quiet to sit and have a coffee. The sun's not even out yet. Like it's early and I sit and I have my coffee and I read and I usually don't vlog during that time because I'm still like in my pajamas. I haven't had my coffee. So anyway, I finished this book during that time. I then got dressed and ready for the day and figured I'd come talk to you now. So I have just over 2 hours left on today's screen time. I think it was like 4 hours. I wish I should have double checked. It was like 4 hours and 45 minutes. Anyway, it's on the screen and I've read just over half of that at this point, finishing up Not Quite Dead Yet. And I was like, okay, what am I going to read next? Because this was the only book that like I had to get in this week. This was the only book that like had to happen this week. And I was like, what am I going to read now? And I went and I looked at the books that I said I wanted to read by the end of the year to see how many of those I read. And I've actually read quite a few of them. But there was one book that immediately stood out on that list. And I was like, I'm reading that. I'm reading that book. This is a highly anticipated sequel to a book that I read only a couple months ago that I really enjoyed. I'm calling them my best fantasy romance couple of the year after reading the first book, and that is Fear the Flames and Wrath of the Dragons. I'm very excited to read this book. I happened to pick up Fear the Flames from a random spinner wheel in my TBR and loved it, and then like realized the sequel was just about to come out when I said that. This book does not want to go on the shelf. It like wants to fall down.
There we go. And I loved it. And then I realized the sequel was literally about to be released like 3 weeks later. So I went and I got it. And I need to read it because I think I'm going to like this one even more because I did have a little bit of issues with the editing in the first book, just because it was cut down significantly from the indie version to the traditionally published version. And I don't think that was done very seamlessly. But this one was just written to be traditionally published. So I don't see the editing problems to continue into here. Like, I would be surprised if they did. So here we go. I'm going to read Wrath of Dragons. And I'm going to do this for the rest of my like 2 hours and some minutes of the day. So it is actually many hours later. It took me a lot longer to read for 2 hours than I expected it to. Mostly because I was expecting to sink into the story and absolutely adore it. And that isn't what happened, which is actually really surprising to me. And it has me really questioning a lot of things. So the first book I read only a couple months ago, and I really, really loved it. I gave it a 4.5 star. And really, it had nothing to do with the book, more the editing that kept it from getting a 5 star. I loved that couple. And in that first book, we have Eowyn, who is a young girl that, not when we meet her, she's grown when we meet her, but we know a little bit about her past. And when she's a young baby, she's given 5 dragon eggs. They hatch and she is connected to these dragons. And her father takes that as kind of like a threat to his leadership and ends up taking her from her dragons, locking her in a tower and imprisoning her dragons. She is taken out. She is smuggled out by her uncle to a foreign land, and she now lives there and rules there, basically a bunch of like castaways from other villages, and starts her own kind of city in hiding from her father. He still has her dragons. So when Caden, who is this commander of another military base, finds her, he offers her an alliance. You come work with my land because you are a princess, and if I can get you as an alliance, that will be helpful, especially if I help you overthrow your father and get your dragons back. And in the first book, we have a lot of found family that I really, really liked. It was also pretty much solely a journey book, which you know I do love a journey book. So there were a couple things that I really liked about it, and I really, really liked this reluctant allies to lovers, and I really loved their banter, and I loved everything about them. Also, I kind of felt like Eowyn was like a Disney princess in a lot of ways, like a grown-up Disney princess, where she was definitely for adults. It's smutty, but like she was locked in a tower, her prince came and saved her, you know, like that kind of thing. And all of those things were things that I liked. And I feel like most of what I liked in the first book has not been in the first part of this book. So in the timer, I read a little bit less than 122 pages because I had 3 pages until the end of the chapter, which actually ended up being the end of part 1. So I ended up just finishing those when the timer went off, saying that my screen time was done for the day because I just wanted to like finish off the chapter, get to the end of a part, like it just made sense. So I finished off those couple of pages. So I think I was on like page 119 or something like that. I'm now on page 122. But anyway, that's where we're at. And this book has not caught my attention in the beginning of this book. It really, really hasn't. Eowyn and Caden, due to things that happened in the first book, are a little bit perturbed with each other. Let's just say that. They're still together, but they're not really as together as they were, you know, before the happenings of the end of that book. They're still together, but not as much as I want them to be. There's too much yearning going on in this book for people who are already together. I'm learning that I don't necessarily like yearning in fantasy romance if it goes on for like books upon books upon books. I'm really only recently learning this with this book and another series that I recently DNF'd because it was going on into book 3 and I was like over it. And that was Spark of the Everflame, which you actually won't see
in this vlog or actually in any vlog because I end up scrapping the video. But I read Glow and then I read Heat, and the yearning was still happening in Heat. And I was like, I have read 1,000 pages. I cannot deal with this yearning any longer. That wasn't the only reason I DNF, but it was definitely one of them. And I'm seeing the yearning kind of going on longer in this than it should. Secondly, this is not a journey book. This is a wartime book. Because of all the happenings that are going on, everyone is at war. All of these different factions and these different like lands are now starting to have like some civil unrest due to what happens in the first book. So this is a war book, a war fantasy romance. It is a fantasy romance, but it's like a wartime fantasy romance versus like whatever the first one was. And I knew that because the back even says, "To war, my love." Like I knew that. I don't like wartime fantasy. Battle scenes, I just get so bored. I get so bored watching a battle scene. I don't mind them occasionally, but when that's like the whole of the book, I don't love it. The one addition that I do like to this book that wasn't in the first book is we have Caden's POV. Actually, the very first chapter we get is Caden's POV. And for a second, I was like, wait a minute. Did we have Caden's POV in Fear the Flames? And I went and looked. We didn't. And I'm really liking Caden's POV a lot more than Elowen's, which is interesting because the whole first book is told in Elowen's POV. I don't know. I don't ask the questions. Like, I don't know the answers. I just know this is the truth. And I'm liking Caden's a lot better. He is so down bad for this girl. And that's what I want. I don't want the yearning. I want the romance. Like, I want it to just be the couple that I love. I want them to just be the couple that I fell in love with in the first book. I don't need the yearning. I'm over the yearning. So here we are. I also don't feel like there's been a lot of plot in the first part of this book. And I do feel like the found family aspects are not hitting as much in this book either, because the found family characters are in it, but not nearly as much as I would like them to be. They're very much like, I don't know, window dressing to the story at this point, where I want them to be like a part of the plot. I got used to them being a part of the plot. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I honestly don't know. Because if this wasn't a sequel to a book that I freaking adored, I would DNF this. I would definitely DNF this by now. I've read 122 pages and I don't care. I'm very much sitting at a 3-star, don't care. There's nothing wrong with this book. There's nothing that I could pinpoint and say, this is wrong, other than like the subtropes and the subgenres and things like that. Not subgenres, definitely subtropes, like the wartime fantasy stuff like that is just not my vibe. And I'm just like, should I DNF this? And then I'm also wondering, because I did DNF Heat of the Everflame 2 books ago. I finished Not Quite Dead Yet in between and I enjoyed that. And I do have a list of reasons why, so I don't think this is the whole problem. This one, I don't really have a list of reasons why. I did for that one. I had a list of reasons why I wasn't liking that book, and I think those are all valid. This one, I'm just like very meh about. I'm very 3-star. I have very little thoughts. And I'm like, why? I was obsessed with the first book. So I'm wondering if I'm also just in a little bit of a fantasy romance slump, where I've read a lot of fantasy romance leading up to the last few months. And maybe I've just read so much that I need a little bit of a break. I mean, I even really liked like 3 thrillers this month. I liked Not Quite Dead Yet. I read 2 thrillers in Tackling Timmies that you've already seen, and I enjoyed those, and I'm not a thriller reader normally. So maybe I just need a little bit of a break from fantasy romance. I honestly don't even know if that's part of the problem. Like, I have no idea if it's me. Is it the book? I don't know. I went and looked up some 3-star reviews, and a lot of what people were saying at the 3-star level was exactly how I was feeling about it. So I'm like, should I DNF this? I honestly don't know if I should DNF this book. I really, 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 truly don't know if I'm going to continue with this tomorrow as of right now. I just finished and I've been sitting here going, I need to go update the vlog, but like, I don't know what to tell them because I don't know if I'm going to continue this book. I might read this for the 5 hours or whatever it is tomorrow that I need to do, or I may pick up a romance, or I don't think I'll pick up a thriller, because yes, I did enjoy some thrillers this month, but I don't necessarily feel like reading a thriller. I have enjoyed cozy fantasy this month, so like maybe I'll pick up a cozy fantasy. I don't know. I don't know if I should continue reading this book. I honestly have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I'm going to take the night. I need to edit a video. The Tackling Timmies that you would have already seen that I just spoke of, I need to edit that today. So I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to edit. I'm going to take the night off. I'm going to take the night off of reading. I've read all the time that I need to read for today. I'm going to do that, maybe watch a show. And in the morning, I'm going to decide what I'm going to read, whether it be continuing this or DNFing this and starting something else, or even just like soft DNFing this and coming back to it later. There's 3 options that could happen tomorrow, and I think I'm just gonna rest and decide tomorrow. So I just finished filming Timmy's TBR, and you would have already seen that video once this one comes out. So if you haven't checked it out, head on over and check it out. Timmy's was surprisingly nice for the month of November. Surprisingly not bad at all. But I just finished filming that and I thought, okay, now's the time. Now's the time to start reading for the day. I have 5 hours and 44 minutes to read today. It is the largest day we've had so far, and I need to dive in. The longer I sat with it, the more it felt right to DNF Wrath of the Dragons. I think it's harder to DNF sequels because I'm already connected to the characters. If it was just a standalone or even the first in a series and I'm not enjoying it, I have no trouble DNFing that. But when it's a series continuation, I feel like bad for DNFing. And I was like, that's silly. I can just treat the first book as a standalone and just be like, I liked that book. And that's okay that I never continued or that I tried to continue and didn't like it. So I have decided that I am done with A Wrath of Dragons officially. And I was like, what do I want to read? I was looking at my shelves and I was actually really struggling to figure out what to read next. And then luckily I was chatting in the Land of Fairy Tale Discord and I saw that someone was reading Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. And immediately I went, that's what I want to read. I want to read Masters of Death. I want to read Olivia Blake. Olivia Blake is a favorite author of mine. I need to read the rest of the backlist. This is one that I own and I have not read, and I want to read Masters of Death. So we're doing a little bit of an impromptu buddy read for this, and I'm going to read this for the next 5 hours and 44 minutes, and I'm actually quite excited to do so. So we've hit the part of the day where I have to put my book down and I need to cook dinner and spend some time with my family. I haven't finished my screen time yet. I will finish it tonight, probably in bed, honestly. But I just hit the 200 page point and I figured that would be a good time to at least update so that I'm not updating you in my pajamas in my bed, because that would be kind of like an odd time to update. I'm sure you all can relate to just like having schedules that you kind of like do every single day. I think whether you have a family or are a single individual or in a couple or whatever your family dynamic looks like, I think you can relate to like sinking into a schedule and kind of having very similar days. I think I've already ended a day very similar to this where I'm like, my reading day's done. I'm not done my time, but I got to go cook dinner. And that's just realistic and how my days tend to look. Like I have a pretty similar day every single day unless there's like something going on that changes the dynamics of the day. So anyway, I've read 216 pages of Masters of Death. So I've read quite a bit of this book, and Olivia Blake really just like never lets me down. I think because at the end of the day, what I love about Olivia Blake's books the most is the writing style of Olivia Blake. I adore the way she writes a story. Super internal monologue, really character focused, and pretty much very convoluted. And like, I understand why a lot of people don't like Olivia Blake. I just love it. But it does mean that because I'm coming for the style, the plot, which there is less of a plot in an Olivia Blake book, it is again character focused. The plot doesn't need to be the thing that's pulling me in. So I rarely dislike a book because her writing style is going to be the same in every single book. The plot is what varies. And I'm not even really here for the plot, although the plot is great too, don't get me wrong. But like from book to book, what I love is always going to be there. And that's the writing style and all the things that I talk about all the time when I read an Olivia Blake book. This book is very, very funny. This book, I have been laughing out loud, and I keep thinking like it's kind of like one of those funny jokes, you know, where you're like, these 3 people enter a bar. That's what this is. It's almost like if a vampire, a demon, a reaper, an angel, and the godson of death entered a home
to vanquish a ghost. Like that's the joke of this book. And there's a lot of meat to that. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of like philosophical things that we're discussing underneath it all. But the general plot of this is actually kind of hysterical. Death is part of this book as well. We don't see death much after the beginning of the book, but it is this like underlining part of this personification of death, that death comes for these two parents and the baby is still there, and that's Fox. And death takes this baby and becomes the godson of this baby and raises Fox. And now Fox is acting as a medium. And Viola, who is a vampire and she is a real estate agent, is trying to sell this mansion, which is being haunted, and she enlists Fox to come get rid of the ghost. And we go down quite the path. We go down quite the path of why is this ghost haunting this house? What is going on with death and all these different entities? Because again, we have reapers, we have angels, we have all sorts of creatures, demons, werewolves that are side creatures. You don't necessarily see them as much, but everything that you could think of is in this book. Like we've seen mermaids for a second, like everything is here. And I do really like how, because we do have angels and demons and we have mortals and immortals and all sorts of creatures, we're pulling from so many different religious themes and mythologies to make this background of creatures and characters and what is life, what is death, what does the afterlife look like, and all that stuff. We have Nordic gods in here. We have Greek mythology gods in here. We have Slavic gods in here. We have, you know, even just like Christian archangels in here. So you have everything kind of like culminating into the background of where this book is taking place in a world that is very, very influenced by creatures and mortals and all these things. And I'm really enjoying the depth of that. And we're not going super deep into all of it. Some of it is really just window dressing, but I do really like the combining of all of that. So again, I'm really enjoying an Olivia Blake book. I'm 54% in. I'll read another hour later this evening, and then I expect to finish this out tomorrow with my hours tomorrow. I haven't looked to see how many hours that is, but I feel like where we've read over half today, and we'll probably have read around like 60% by the time my hour is over later, I should have enough time tomorrow to finish it out. So last night I got up to page 272, and this morning I looked at my screen time and I had 3 hours and 52 minutes to do today, which is much less than yesterday. So that is going to be very, very doable, and it is proving to be because I've already read most of this time, honestly. I only have just over an hour left. I think like an hour and 18 minutes left, because I read the rest of Masters of Death so I could come and give you my final thoughts on this book. So I'm gonna give this 4 stars. This book is just all over the place. Like character-wise, there's so many characters with so many different intentions, and you don't really know everybody's intentions for a long time. You're picking and you're parsing and you're putting it all together and wondering why all these characters are even here. What is their ultimate plan? What is their motivation? And how does it all like connect to the larger story? And it does. It all makes sense. You kind of just have to strap in and go for the ride with Olivia Blake a lot of the time, and it will make sense. And you will get to the end and you'll go, oh, okay, I get it now. Like I understand what we were doing. But it takes a second to get there, honestly. But we did. We got there. We figured it all out. And in this book, we really look at what it is like for humans to master death. What is that really looking like? To not fear death, because I think it's a really common human feeling to be scared of what death is. And not just death for ourselves, but death for those around us, death for the people we love. And we look at what living really is, because to live means you have to feel pain sometimes. You have to feel loss. And to be happy, you almost need to know what loss and pain and struggle feels like so that you can actually appreciate the happy moments. And that is really the commentary and the philosophy amongst this kind of convoluted story that Olivia Blake has written. And I really did have a good time with it. Olivia Blake is always going to be a writer that I come back to. And I now have officially finished another backlist book from Olivia Blake, and I'm really whipping through it. Like I don't have that many left to do. Now, I had a plan. I had a plan for what to do after I finished Masters of Death. I had a whole plan in place that I was going to read First Time Caller.
However, I am currently doing Fabelin for the month of October, and the prompts dropped for day 4. And I looked at the prompts, all of them, all the multiple choices, and when I can't read first time caller, it doesn't work for what I need to read. It doesn't work. So first time caller is not happening. So I went to my shelves, I started looking around, and since I had it like in my head that I was going to read a romance, I was really only looking for romances. I just feel like we've read a thriller or a mystery thriller. We've read a fantasy. It's now time to read a romance. Like my person is feeling like now it's time to read a romance. And the prompt I really needed to fill is weapon on the cover, which with a romance, that's a hardship. But I've done it. I found a romance with a weapon on the cover. And that romance is Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. This one I have put on multiple readathon TBRs, and I just keep running out of time to read it. So today we're going to get it started. Tomorrow we'll work further through it and maybe even finish it. I don't know how much we have to read tomorrow, but like it's only an 11-hour audiobook. I should be able to do this in like 5 hours. So a day or 2 at most, I think we can read this fun romance that follows some like archaeologists. And if you look really closely, she has like a knife on her thigh. So there's my, weapon, a dagger, knife, some sort of weapon. It's an implement that she could use to injure someone on her thigh. So that is how I'm using that for the prompt. And now Fabelin is controlling my screen swap time because here we are, I need to fill the prompt and be a good host. So yeah, that's what I'm going to read next. And I'm going to just go from like heavy philosophy to like fun, hopefully kick your feet romance. 4 chapters in and I am finished my reading for the day. And honestly, I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure. I think it could get better, but I don't think the beginning is super, super strong. So in this, we follow Corey, and she is a leading archaeology expert in like the Aztec, a certain Aztec warrior. And she is being offered a place on a dig. And the dig is very mysterious, honestly. She doesn't really know much information when she gets on the plane to go, but like this is what she has focused her whole research on. So she's not going to miss this dig. She shows up and finds out that her like rival from graduate school, Ford Matthews, is the person running the dig. And they have like a rivals to lovers situation throughout this whole book. And I do think that's not done necessarily well. The rivals to lovers is stretching it the way it's written. We are really trying to force this dynamic, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Both of them clearly find the other attractive. It is very, 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 very obvious. And they talk about it almost incessantly through the first 4 chapters. But then there's, but I hate him, but she's like this, but she's like this, but he's like this. And it's constantly like, I find him hot, but oh, he's annoying. And the other way around, she's super hot, but I find her annoying. And I think we're just like pushing it in a way that kind of feels awkward and disingenuous. And I'm hoping the book gets better once we actually just like start the relationship part, because I think this might have been better as like a friends to lovers, to be honest, because the rivals, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this rivals to lovers. It feels really forced and really, really stilted. However, I do like the archaeological part of this book. I do really like that we have a lot of references to like pop culture archaeological things. So there's obviously an Indiana Jones reference. They kind of like put him in like the Indiana Jones idea. And she keeps being referred to as like Laura Croft, which is one that I wouldn't have thought of, but like, yes, that makes sense. And then we have even like the mummy references. So there are a lot of like pop culture references in here. Not in a bad way though, because I feel like those are pop culture references that like everyone's going to know. It's not going to age the book. I mean, Indiana Jones is like a classic. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to run its course and then date this book. So there's a couple things that I'm not super loving about this. The other thing that I don't like is just how it's formatted. So we do have both perspectives, but we are not really told that we do. It doesn't have like the name of who we're following at the top. It just says like chapter 5. And then you have to like read it to figure out if you're with Corey or if you're with Ford. And I would prefer to be told just to orientate myself, especially since I am immersion reading
and the audio is only one narrator and it is only the female narrator. So sometimes I find it jarring to not be told I'm going into Ford's perspective, not hearing a switch, and then being like, oh, we're talking from Ford. And it takes me a second to kind of like orientate myself in his perspective and realize I'm not in Corey's perspective. So there's a couple formatting issues. The rivals to lovers, I'm not necessarily feeling or, necessarily feel like it makes sense in this book. And, there's some issues, but I'm willing to keep going. I think it could get better. I'm willing to trust the process of this book a little bit. So I did check. Tomorrow I have to read for 3 hours and 41 minutes, even less than today. And I don't even know if I can finish this tomorrow, but that is going to be the book that I'm going to be reading unless I DNF it. As of right now, I'm going to trust the process, but I could see me going either way. If it gets better, I'll be like, yes, it got better. It was just a little weird at the beginning. Or if that continues, will I make it to the end of the book? I don't know. Tomorrow will be the deciding factor. I'm not DNFing it right now. This isn't like Wrath of Dragons where I was like, oh yeah, we're probably DNFing this. No. I'm going to give this a lot more of a try. But I need it to get better once they're together. I need to leave the rivals part of the rivals to lovers behind. So close to finishing this book during my screen time today. I just finished my screen time and I am at 286, the page number. That's where I'm at. And I just hit the third act breakup, honestly. So it's probably a good time to put it down since the story is kind of transitioning into that part of the story. This book was so different for me today than it was yesterday. Yesterday, I wasn't really enjoying the start of this book. The first 6 chapters, I was just not loving it. However, it totally changed for me today. And I enjoyed my time with it for the entirety of today. It was completely a different experience. And I did kind of suspect that would happen once they decided to put the rivals away. Once this got together and these two finally decided to just put that aside and be together, it was hot. It was hot, hot, hot. The smut was smutting. It was a good time. It was a smutty good time. The banter was good. Everything about it was good once we decided to put that really forced rivals to lovers away and just become lovers. I also really enjoyed the archaeological parts of this book. We are on this hunt for this Aztec warrior, and I'm enjoying kind of seeing the behind the scenes of an archaeological dig. Also being at the camp and seeing the dynamics between all these different people. We have 3 archaeologists, we have assistants, we have some PhD students, and we're seeing all their different kind of interactions and how they all kind of feed off each other, kind of making a found family, but all with one intense and purpose of finding this warrior and the artifacts surrounding this warrior. And I found that really interesting. So I honestly have no idea how I'm going to rate this book because it went from being not very good. Honestly, it wasn't very good at the beginning to being really good for the middle and the end. So I'm not sure. That will be a problem for tomorrow. When I finish, I will have to decide. I'm kind of glad I can marinate on my thoughts for the night and see how much not liking the beginning is going to affect my overall rating of this book. And we'll just decide tomorrow when we finish. So this morning I got up early and I finished Raiders of the Lost Heart. It took me just about an hour to finish out this book, maybe a little bit less, but about an hour. And I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think I enjoyed the latter half of this book to a 4-star level, but I enjoyed the first half of this book to a low 3-star level, and I just can't overlook that start. I do think though that I could be interested in continuing the series if someone told me it continued in the same vein of the second, half or even the second 2/3 of this book. I would be convinced to give it another try because we follow a different archaeological adventure and it is set up in the epilogue of this.
And I did like that part. That was my favorite part of this book, actually. So like, I could see me interested, but that will not be today. Today, I need to read for 4 hours and 25 minutes to round out my screen swap time. And today, I'm going to be starting the B&K book club. I need to do the B&K book club. So that is what we are going to do. And that is, not belong here. No, it is You Belong Here. Forgot the whole first word, by Megan Miranda. This is a dark academia thriller, I believe, as it is set, I think, in a school. Basically, it follows Beckett, who went to Wyatt Valley University, and like something very bad happened when she was there. Her roommate disappeared. 2 people were found murdered. They don't know how that was all connected. Now, many, many, many years later, her daughter is going back to this university, and she's wondering if like her past is going to catch up with her daughter and her now that her daughter is going there. So that is really all that I know about this. Megan Miranda and I have a mixed past, to be honest. I have liked one that I've read, and I've disliked one that I've read. So I don't know if I'm going to like this. Kelsey picked this because Kelsey really does like Megan Miranda. And at this point, I'm kind of very mixed. Like I said, I've liked one and not liked one, so I don't really know. I'm a little bit more nervous than I was earlier in the week, knowing I was going to be picking this up, because the reviews from those who started it for the book club early have not been shining. Yesterday was supposed to be the last day of this vlog, and I was going to swap my screen time with my reading time. I chatted with you. I told you all about it, and I failed. The only day that I failed was the final day, because this book is so boring. This book is so boring. I had seen most people saying this in the Discord. Most people saying this on the sprints as we were reading it, and that was exactly my experience. I did finish the last hour of yesterday's screen time this morning, and I did get to the end of that time, and I've decided to just DNF this book. I would have probably DNF'd this a little bit earlier, but I figured let's just finish the screen time with it, give it that long to maybe turn around, catch my interest, and if it doesn't, at the end of that screen time, I will DNF, and that's exactly what I am doing. I am so bored. So bored. Nothing is happening. Nothing of interest is happening in this book. So in this book, we follow Beckett, and Beckett, when she was in college, her roommate was accused of murdering 2 people. She went on the run. No one has ever seen her since. And Beckett was kind of like caught up in this as it being her roommate and friend. And now her daughter is going to this university, and she's kind of worried that this is going to bring stuff back up. And honestly, it feels like she's the one bringing it back up. Like, I feel like this small town isn't bringing it back up, but Beckett surely is bringing it back up, like constantly bringing it up. And I've heard what the twist is now since I've DNF'd, because, you know, I had to ask Kelsey, who had already finished the book. And No, it's not it. And I'm glad I've DNF'd, because honestly, to continue to listen to what is just like a book that I have very little thoughts on. It's a book that exists and I didn't even finish reading it. There you go. Like I'm not liking it. I'm not liking it. And I've had a lot of thrillers this month over a couple of different vlogs that I have really enjoyed. I'm not a big thriller reader, so, you know, there is that. But Megan Miranda is hit or miss for me anyway. This is actually the second time I haven't liked a Megan Miranda. I've only actually liked one. So, you know, maybe the author is just not for me. Very, very possible. But we are going to end this screen time swap with a DNF at chapter. It doesn't even have a chapter number. It just says before on page 184. So that's as far as I got in this book, and that's as far as I will be getting. So yeah, not how I wanted to end it, but it is what it is. I'm actually really glad that I swapped my screen time with my reading time. I did look back over my screen time to see if reading more or reading my screen time meant that I used my screen less, and it didn't. It didn't. So I'm wondering if I just kind of read this much normally, which is possible. I mean, I do read for a couple of hours every day. I do think on like the 3-hour days, yeah, that's normal. Anything more than that probably isn't. However, I think I actually was like craving screen time because I was reading more, which is interesting. Like, I think I actually scrolled TikTok more often than I would have had I not been doing this challenge, because I would be reading, especially a book that maybe wasn't capturing my attention. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just scroll TikTok for a couple minutes and I'll get back to reading. And then I'd like descend into scrolling. So I actually think it did the opposite for me, which, you know, who would have thought? But that's my story. And that's what happened when I swapped my screen time with my reading time. We've had various reads this week, 2 DNFs. Not the best, but you know what? We are in our DNF season here. We are only reading books that we love. We are only reading books that we want to read, that are bringing enjoyment. Reading is supposed to be about enjoyment. As soon as we're not having enjoyment, why are we doing it? That's my new mantra for like life and DNF. So here we go. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video and have nothing to say down in the comments, leave me a cell phone emoji for trying to cut down my screen time, even though I didn't really do that this week. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.